Hi, my name is Harold Watson, and this is my final project for EDLD 8433. I will be covering governance in higher education athletics. Throughout this PowerPoint, I will be looking at what athletic governance actually is, and then looking at the athletic governing bodies and how they operate, looking at the NCAA, the NAIA, the NJCAA, and then moving into key issues in athletic governance, and then talking about how this ties together and examining it, comparing it to just higher ed governance that we've been learning about in class. Athletic governance or sport governance refers to the exercise of power with consideration given to influence, authority, and the nature of decision making in higher ed athletic governance. Um, this also extends to professional sports and how they operate and how decisions are made and who leads those decisions and whether it's a sport league or it's a college athletic governing body, where they go and how things happen and who runs those different organizations. So at the college level, there are a number of governing bodies. Your traditional, more well-known governing bodies are the NCAA, which we'll look at, the NAIA, and then the NJCAA, National Junior College Athletic Association. We will examine some of the smaller governing bodies, the USCAA and the NCCAA. The NCAA, formed in 1910, is your largest governing body. It's comprised of three divisions. Division One, which is a full scholarship model, where programs have a certain allotment of scholarships to use throughout each year, and they can give scholarships that way. Your Division Two model, which is more of an equivalency model, where scholarship totals are lower, and typically student athletes don't get full ride scholarships, but more of a partial model. And then your Division Three, where there's no athletic aid provided. Uh, Typically, those student athletes will get dollars either based on need based, or they get dollars based off of their academics. The NCAA in those three divisions are comprised of about 1,268 schools. That number fluctuates as more institutions are leaving the smaller bodies and coming to the NCAA. So the NCAA structured model consists of legislative bodies that are made up of volunteers from member schools that govern each division, as well as committees that set association-wide policies. Those different committees, they manage topics that affect sports rules, championships, health and safety, matters pertaining to women in athletics, and also minorities. Those committees, typically they meet once at the national office, as well as over the phone to talk about different things that are going on. I was fortunate enough when I worked at an NCAA institution to be on a committee and learn a lot about the governance structure and how it works and how change happens at the NCAA level. Overall, the NCAA has what's called a board of governors, which are presidents and chancellors from each division. Um, the Division One presidents and chancellors have the most representation on those committees, but they also are represented by Division Two and Division Three, where they look at the 5,000-foot view of college athletics and examine how we create change for our student athletes and our coaches and make things happen moving forward. So the NAI, which now I'm a part of at the institution that I work at, they were started in 1940. There's 255 members. They were broken down into two different divisions. Division One specifically for basketball, and then Division Two, which they were broken down by the amount of scholarships you offered. But because of the number and membership and the low number, they've decided to go away from the divisional model and place everyone on the same level playing field moving forward. That change will happen next year, and that's a prime example of how change is created in higher ed athletic governance, where some presidents and coaches got together and said this just doesn't work, and we have a different experience. And you start looking at 255 members and 64 members make it. You're at a place where the governing body is providing for half of your membership to go to postseason. So they work to level the playing field and even it out and make sure that institutions are working together to decide how, from a conference standpoint, they spend dollars and create a unique experience. The NAIA model, similar to the NCAA, is governed by a council of presidents that works downwards through the president and CEO of the NAIA, as well as some committee structured similar to the NCAA, where you have the National Administrative Council and the faculty athletic reps, and then a council of student athletes that they work with to really create change and govern how the NAIA works as a whole. So the NJCAA, formed in 1938, their motto is "Opportunity Starts Here." They're broken down into a similar model of the NCAA, where you have that 3-division model, where one is really giving full athletic scholarships and covering books and everything that goes along with it. The Division II model, where it's limited to only tuition, fees, and books. Whereas in that Division I, you can also get room and board and things like that. And then you have your Division III model, where there is no athletic aid provided whatsoever. There are 525 members, but their governance structure has really changed over the last 3 or 4 years as they adopted a new governance structure in 2018 that provides for endless opportunities to the student athletes in all 3 divisions. The board of directors was changed from that to a board of regents, and in there they now have 24 regions that are represented by committee members that serve on the board of regents to help give a voice to each region as the regions are broken out. Some are larger than other, depending on the amount of schools. I use Chicago, knowing that I'm from there, and that there are a lot of two-year community college institutions in that region. So it's extremely small when you think about from that standpoint. But the one out west, where you have about 4 or 5 states combined together in one region, because they have less institutions. The benefits to the new structure is that you get monthly engagement from the BOR, the ability to adapt to higher ed changes and practices, sound structure with a national leadership presence, because now they work more closely with that national office, and then transparent information flow, because all these regions have someone that reports back and gives all the information to their specific region on what's coming down the pike, what's changing, things like that. Just to touch on a few other governing structures, the USCAA, formed in 1966, it's catered specifically to smaller institutions. Institutions that feel like they get left out in the shuffle when you start to look at things like postseason. And then similar, the NCAA that's catered specifically to Christian institutions. It's an opportunity for these institutions to play like-minded schools and be involved in working with schools that are similar to them that may not be the same case as it relates to who they're competing with from a regionally standpoint or a conference standpoint. I know my institution now, Goshen, is 800 students, but we also compete against some schools that have 10,000 students in the same conference. So being a member of these governing structures affords institutions to maybe keep some of their regional based rivalries and things that they're used to in terms of working with institutions, but also affords them the opportunity to step out of their world and work with institutions that are similar to them in maybe size, scope, faith-based component. So as I started to work on this, it became evident that there were 5 key issues right now in higher ed athletic governance. The first is student athletes' health, paying attention to making sure that from a mental standpoint that they're taking care of their health and well-being as well as they do their physical, making sure that they're getting time away from their sports, and making sure that in all of it their voice is being heard. That's at the forefront of the NCAA, the NAIA, the NJCAA. As they move forward, they really want to take into account student athletes' health and well-being. The second thing, which is mostly a NCAA Division I issue, but it becomes an issue for everyone because there tends to be a lot of conversations around revenues and dollars being brought in by schools and how student athletes reap those benefits. Most small schools don't necessarily deal with it, but it's an issue because they have to have conversations around it. So all governing structures are actively paying attention to that part and how they communicate the information to the student athletes. The third thing that's really key issues for higher ed athletic governance is having an inclusive process. And you'll notice most institutions, most governing structures have really taken to hearing the student athlete and hearing about their experience and ways that things can be made better for the future, and that part is extremely important. For department compliance, we've seen an abundance of institutions getting in trouble for breaking the rules, for giving dollars when they weren't supposed to. So department compliance and accountability is really at the forefront of higher ed governance. And then the fifth and final thing is the role of the faculty athletic rep in this process. And they walk a thin line between relationship with the athletic department, knowing that they're here for the student athletes, but also with the faculty members, especially at smaller schools where athletics is not the focal point of that institution, making sure that they're working with both sides to make sure that the student athlete is getting a appropriate experience. And we found that institutions are really starting to get away from taking the FAR for granted, and most FARs are starting to want to be included in those big decisions when they pertain to student athletes and their experience and their time in the classroom and their time at practice. So it's really starting to take off and people are starting to pay attention. In summary, athletic governance is at a crossroads, similar to the overall higher ed governance structure, and it's important for athletic governance to really hone in on those key issues as they move forward, because we're at a place where it really needs a major overhaul as you try to create good experiences for student athletes. And then I think in all, most governing structures are starting to make sure that they put the onus back on student-athlete experience and making sure that the ones that are making the decisions put that at the forefront of all they do. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.